Hey basketball coaches and basketball players, my name is Alan from Basketball Coach Alan, and today I'm going to talk to you about some of the bigger mistakes that shooters make while playing basketball and taking their shots. So, number one is when they're drifting in their shot. When you're taking your shot, you want to try and stay straight up and down when you take your shot. You don't want to be drifting towards the right side, left side, forward, or backward. And there's a good reason for this. So, if you're shooting straight up and you're taking your shot, you're going to have a lot more accuracy than if you were shifting in your shot, or if you're drifting in your shot. So for example, if I'm taking my shot and I'm trying to hit that line and I shoot straight up, I should be pretty close to it. Now, I missed it by just a bit, but in general, it should land where you want it to land. But if you're drifting in your shot and you're taking your shot, it's going to be drifting in the same direction as where you're going. So if you're going straight up and straight down and you've got pretty good aim of the basket, it should go pretty well straight. But it is a bit windy today, so that could be why my shot's going a little bit left. My elbow could be out as well. I'm not shooting on a net right now. But if you're shooting and you're drifting towards the right side, it's also going to go towards the right side, as you can see, because if you're shooting right, the ball's going to go right. It's all about momentum. It's the same as if you're shooting and you're taking your shot and going out towards the left side. It's also going to go out towards the left side. If you're shooting and you're doing a shot from farther than you're normally taking and you're drifting forward, it's also going to be pushing that ball forward as well. That's why you're drifting forward, because you might not have the strength to shoot from that distance. But if you do have strength to shoot from that distance and you're putting the same strength on it as if you're going straight up and down, but let's say you were on the run and now you're shooting forward, that foot difference that I just drifted forward is also going to be incorporated into my shot. So now, if you were into that situation where you were just running full speed and you go up for your shot and you drift forward a foot, you need to take a foot away from the power when you're releasing it. So it also goes if you're doing a fadeaway from the net and you're doing a fadeaway. Now, to do a proper fadeaway, you're actually pretty well going straight up and down. You're not drifting backwards, but a lot of players will drift totally backwards and try to chuck it up. But in reality, when you're doing a fadeaway, you're actually not drifting. You're going straight up and down. You're taking that step, you're turning around, and you're going straight up, creating that space between you. You are kicking that foot out sometimes, but you are still going straight up and down. So if you do end up doing a fadeaway where you're actually drifting farther from the net, that means that you need to put an extra 1, 2, or even sometimes 3 feet of power more into that shot. And to do that, you need to have more legs to jump up if you're going to be shooting like that. But in reality, like I just said, if you're doing a fadeaway, you're not drifting, you're taking that step up or step away, and then you're shooting off of that back foot, and you're still going straight up and straight down. Another mistake that a lot of players make is not putting backspin on the ball. And there's a good reason why you would want backspin on the ball. So, having backspin on the ball is going to allow you to cut through the air a little bit more so you can actually get more distance on your shot. That's number one. Number two, having backspin on the ball is going to allow you, when you take that shot, it's going to allow you to hit that rim. And now, instead of just chucking it towards the rim without any backspin, it's going to hit that rim and bounce off somewhere. While if you're shooting it with backspin, it's going to hit backspin on that rim and it's going to try and stop. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example here. So if you shoot the ball and you're going to try and land it on my hand, if there's no backspin, it's going to roll off. But if you're putting backspin on the ball, see how it bounced backwards. So if you hit the back of that rim it's going to bounce in. If it hits the front of that rim, if it's high enough, if you've got enough legs beneath you, it's going to bounce and then bounce in like we've seen in Kawhi Leonard's shot in the playoffs last year. If you're lucky, and this is when we start getting to shooters' bounces, if you've got enough backspin on the ball and it hits the left rim or the right rim, it's going to still have a chance of bouncing in because it's going to hit that rim. And if it's just that millimeter towards the middle of the net, you're going to have that shooter's bounce where it hits that side of the rim, hit the back of the rim or the backboard, and then bounce in. This is what we call a shooter's bounce. And to have that shooter's bounce, you've got backspin on that ball. And to get backspin on the ball, you need to have it roll off that middle finger. You don't want to have it roll off the right side of your hand because it's going to give it right spin. You don't want to have it roll off the left side of your hand because it's going to give it left spin. You want to have it go right off that middle finger so that you can have that perfect backspin so it can bounce right back to you. And believe me, once you've got that down, you could quite literally shoot with your left hand and have a pretty straight shot as well, as long as you have the power behind it. Now you may be saying, okay, I feel it going off my middle finger, but it still has that weird side spin towards this kind of spin towards that left side. Why? So the reason for that, I wonder if I can zoom into my shot, is when people shoot and it has side spin that way, they sometimes are still pushing it with that left hand. Or if you're left-handed, they're still pushing it with that right hand. Now, to do a proper shot where you have perfect backspin is if you're releasing that hand and then going up. And that's all super quick. You're not just stopping like I just did. Now, I've seen players, I used to play with a player who would go up, release his hand, and then shoot. But that is a lot slower of a shot. So if you want it to be quick, you release that hand and then you shoot, and then you make that quicker and quicker and quicker, so that now when you get to game, you're doing it all in one motion instead of having to pause, release, and then shoot. Now, another mistake that a lot of players make, even NBA players make this mistake, and in last year's playoffs, when the Raptors were playing against the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, his father used to play for the Raptors, so of course he likes the Golden State Warriors. He loves the Raptors, so he actually gave a couple of the Raptors players some tips, and I know this because they mentioned it in the color commentary up here in Canada on TSN and not on ESPN, on TSN and Sportsnet. And that one of the tips that he gave to some of the Raptors players is the reason why you're missing your shots, and this is something I say to all my players too, is you're shooting and you're bringing your arms down and you're saying, there we go. And it kind of makes you feel like you're doing something cool in that. But in reality, you want to shoot and keep your hand up there. That's called follow through, and you're holding your follow through. A lot of players just chuck up the ball, put their hand down and run away. You want to have that shot and you want to hold it up there for a long time. The reason for that is it's going to give you more backspin on that ball. It's also going to help you give you a straighter shot. And sometimes, in my opinion, it also gives you the ability to have more arc on your shot as well, because it's keeping in your mind that you're keeping your arm up there. So to have arc on the ball, you want to have a high release. And by keeping your hand up there, you're going to be able to have that high release. And the reason why a high release is very important in basketball is this. A high release in basketball is important because picture my fingers right now as the rim. If you're coming as a basketball, coming towards the rim, and you're on the same plane like you are to the rim right now, it's not going to give you the ability, it's not going to be a very big target. But when you start having arc on the ball, and you're having a lot of arc on the ball, it turns the rim into looking like this to the ball. There's actually enough room in the net to have two basketballs side by side. So if you're putting more arc on your shot, it's going to allow you to have a higher percentage shot between the backspin and the ability of having arc to get the ball into the rim. it's going to allow you to have a very consistent and high percentage shot. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. I hope that these tips help you become a better shooter in basketball. If they do, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow for another twice a day basketball video.